standing at the shop in Northwest Indiana in February. I think the temperature outside is 3 degrees. You can get a frostbite from standing out there. Or you come in here, we're building a frostbite transmission for the frostbite Ram truck. That's the case. Hi everyone, John Colt from CRT, and I'm going to show a few things about the overdrive section on this frostbite truck. And we'll go over a few things. I'm going to document the whole build for him, and just to show you guys what's going on inside the transmission, okay? So let me do this real quick. I'm going to do this piece by piece. So right now I'm just going to show you what we got going on the overdrive section. It's all apart, and you're not seeing double. There's a few things I want to show you and could do a little comparison of what's going inside the transmission. And the first thing I'm going to start with is the output shaft. This is a rear-wheel drive truck, and there's two style output shafts that we'll see right here. One has a speedometer and a hole for a governor, and the governor assembly goes on this keyway, and the other one has nothing. There's a tone ring on the overdrive annulus right here that picks up on the speed sensor. So for this build, for the frostbite Ram truck, I'm going to use the shaft on the left. This shaft is completely solid all the way up, as you see. There's no holes in it. It's actually stronger than this shaft, which has a hole in it. Could you see the hole through there? And it has a worm gear right here for a speedometer. So if you were going to have a vehicle that needed a speedometer driven by a gear, I would use this output shaft. But since the frostbite truck, the frostbite Ram, has his speedometer in the rear end, which is a vehicle speed sensor, he does not need a worm gear on the shaft, which means that it's going to allow me to use a shaft that is stronger than the shaft with a hole in it. With trans brake applications, it's possible that the run, when you're running stock shafts, if you run shafts with no holes in it or worm gears, it's just stronger. It's not made from any of a different material. It's not billet. It's just a stock shafts at the raw form. So I just wanted to show you the difference between the two shafts, and that we're going to use this one here for the frostbite truck. So I'm going to put that one up to the side. I wanted to show you guys the difference. The other pieces that I got on the bench here would be, let's do the Overdrive Planetary. Now this is a little bit of a surprise I'm doing for Dylan. He doesn't know I'm doing this until he sees this video. So here's a surprise. When you buy my Hellcat 518, or we'll call it a 46RE, whatever you like, it's going to come with the Overdrive Planet is made of steel and it's helical cut, which means, where am I at? Here we go. That means the gears, the way they're cut, are done at an angle. Those are called helical cut gears. And these work fine. There's nothing wrong with them. I've used them in 1,000 horsepower applications. They're the 4-pinion helical cut overdrive gear set that Chrysler's used on all their gas motors. The diesel motors, and they did use a 6-pinion, but I think that's way overkill for a gas motor. So what I have here is a straight cut gear set that Chrysler came out with. They used it for 2 years on V10s. And the reason why they quit using it was because the customers complained about the gear noise when in overdrive. So I've actually had this gear set for quite some time. The 5-pinion straight cuts. I just had them laying around. I don't even have a set in my truck, which is a Hemi powered. It's also Hemi powered. That truck is called Mr. Haney. Mr. Haney doesn't even have straight cuts 5-pinion. They have the helical cut 4-pinion. It may be a little bit overkill, but for this unit, I really wanted to put some of the best parts that I had just laying around. So this is a 2-year only made gear set that Chrysler put in their 518. Well, it wouldn't be a 518. It would be a 47RH is what this gear set came in, and Chrysler only used it 2 years. So this one is a little bit of a bonus for you there, Dylan, for the frostbite. So I wanted to show you that. So we're going to take this gear set and save it for the next one. Now I know what you're saying. Hey, I want one of those straight cut gear sets. They're a little bit of a needle in the haystack. They're hard to find, man. I've been hanging on this thing for a couple years just on the shelf. I was just looking for an excuse to use it. So I'm going to use it on the frostbite truck. I already installed the new bushings, top and bottom. I'm trying to keep this as clear as I can. And put the bearing on there. And so I'm ready to do assembly. It's getting a brand new double roller sprag for the overdrive. Here is the straight cut annulus. These are just some snap rings. And the other piece, and look at this monster. Look at this. Huh? That's the overdrive spring that Chrysler uses. You can almost use that baby in a go-kart for suspension. It's pretty stout. So this, let's see what else we got here. It's going to get an updated snap ring. This ain't the one. It's this snap ring right here. You guys ever drop an oil pan on a 518 or A500 to see bits of a snap ring laying at the bottom of a pan? It's from this one. They seem to break a lot. So this is, actually this ain't the new one. I got a new one around here somewhere, but this one ain't it. I got a new one. It's getting an updated snap ring to prevent that from popping off. Here are the clutches. So we have the overdrive directs and the overdrive brake. The big overdrive clutches, we're gonna go from 4 clutches to 5, and we're gonna use choline steels instead of stock steels. And these clutches are GPZ Raybestos clutches, which that will be out throughout the trans. For these, the smaller overdrive ones, believe it or not, I'm using bone stock Raybestos clutches and steels, and I'll tell you why. These clutches are on, if you look at the flow chart, these clutches are on and applied by that spring in every gear except when in overdrive. So even when the truck shut off, these clutches are applied. They're applied by the spring, and then when the overdrive piston comes on and pushes this, it pushes the spring down, it shuts off these clutches and turns on these clutches. So there's really no need to put performance clutches in this kit or in the overdrive, the smaller overdrive. I think it's the overdrive brake or overdrive direct, I'm sorry. There's no need to put performance clutches in here because they're not hydraulically applied. They're always applied by that big spring, first, second, third, in reverse. And then the only time they shut off is when you're in overdrive. So they never, ever, ever wear out. So that's why I'm using stock clutches. And I do in all of them, even if it's the Elephant Trans or if it's the Hellcat Trans. And this is basically a Hellcat Trans. And the only difference between a Elephant and the Hellcat is stock shafts. So this is going to have a stock input shaft, output shaft, and intermediate shaft. And even though it's a trans brake unit, I've run stock shafts in my Mr. Haney truck, and I've been trans braking it for 3 years now, and I've never broke one. It's a 4,000 pound truck. I think Dylan's truck is about the same, if not maybe a little bit less or a little bit more. So I'm pretty confident that he's never going to break a factory shaft. The Elephant transmission that has 1,000 horsepower, that's a little different. I put shafts. I put the 2 shafts in there, the intermediate shaft and the input shaft and hub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this together, and then we're going to go to the press, and I'll show you guys how we press it together. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, now we're in the shop and we're at the press. With 518s, 46 REs, it requires that you compress that big spring I showed you earlier down, and you're gonna need 2 tools. One is this tool here that aligns the Planetary with the Sprag race, and then this one here that compresses it. I already have the new Overdrive clutches in here, and remember that snap ring I told you guys about that always is in the bottom of the oil pan when you drop it off? Well, this is a new updated one. So always use a new updated one on here, as we do for this one. And then I keep my 518 snap rings right here so they don't get lost. So we're going to go ahead and press this down, and we're going to assemble this overdrive unit. Well, it's assembled. We're just going to put the final 2 snap rings on it. Yeah, that spring is like, I don't know. I can't remember what the weight was. It was an 800 pound spring. It's pretty gnarly. So you just go down far enough until you can see this first snap ring land, and then you should all be in all the way. Then just one by one, drop the clutches in and the steels, which are already stacked and have already been pre-soaked for 15 minutes. All right, I'm going to go down a little bit more. We're going to install the updated snap ring that will not break, and then there's an inner snap ring that we put on. Make sure they're seated in the groove all the way, which we are. Bring up the press, and there you go. And that's all you do. It's really just a how-to video. This is just me showing how we're putting together this Hellcat Trans for the Frostbite truck. All right. All right, we just got back from the press, and I put this overdrive section together, and now we're going to go ahead and assemble it in the tail housing. One thing I will give you guys a little tip for you do-it-yourselfers. You notice I used a tool to align the Planetary splines along with the double run overrunning clutch splines. The Planetary splines come here, and the overrun clutch splines go here. This is a stock output shaft that I've been using. I used that you can cut the end off and use this for an alignment tool, because both those splines have to be lined up with this. Otherwise, you can assemble it and the splines won't be together. Then when you go drop the overdrive unit onto the intermediate shaft, the splines will line up. So if you guys want to make your own tool, just get an intermediate shaft and cut the one end off, and you got yourself a tool. I've been using that thing since I worked at Dodge years and years and years ago. So that's a freebie tip. All right, so I got the overdrive unit assembled. Got our bearing on. Again, I'm using the output shaft that doesn't have the speedometer or the hole for the governor because it's stronger, And Frostbite has a vehicle speed sensor that he can either run the one off the tail housing here or the one off the differential, so he doesn't need a speedometer. But let's say you were just going to put this on a Roadrunner or a GTX or something that has a cable-driven speedometer, then you can request, say, John, I want a cable-driven speedometer. I will change the shaft to the other one for you. So the tail housing's already been prepped and hot tanked, and we're painting this, I'm calling this Frostbite White. And the only thing that we have to do, the bushing, the tail housing's already in, or the bushing and the rear seal is already in. Put our snap ring in there. That's going to go on this bearing right here. Put the assembly system, the tail housing over the overdrive unit. All right, the snap ring's in. Then we're gonna put the little clip cover with this gasket and the 2 screws. I always have mine sent out and have them gold plated because they look really nice. It's actually gold. Come here, Elaine.
What?
Hey guys, this is my wife, Elaine. Say hello.
Hi. Are you really recording?
Yeah, I'm really
I'll
recording.
see you later.
Well, she got out of here real quick, didn't she? All right, camera guy, I'm going to have you come to this side so they can see. So pick up the camera and come around to this side. So now we're going to put the overdrive clutches in. Could you see that inside there pretty good? Or no? With some light help?
Probably.
How's that? All right, the only thing left to put in here are the 2 snap rings. First goes the flat snap ring. Then the wave snap ring. Then the pressure plate goes in. And then these are the overdrive clutches. I've told you before, but these are GPZs by Raybestos and Choline Steels. So 1 clutch, 1 steel, 1 clutch, 1 steel. Who's behind me? That was my phone. It's probably Dylan. Hey, is my transmission done? I got fingerprints all over the tail housing. You know why? Because it's still a little bit damp. All right. Then the very strongest snap ring in the world goes right there. Make sure it's in the groove all the way. All right, I'm not going to touch the tail housing because my hands are dirty and I'm leaving fingerprints all over it. So that's it. That's how you do an overdrive unit. Even though this ain't a whole how-to video, I'm just documenting the build is all I'm doing. All right, there's the case. The case is prepped. The sprag is in. You can't see it. Let me try doing a little. Yeah, that ain't gonna work. Got the low reverse billet servos in there. The accumulator with the blocker rod instead of D-rings. There's the billet 4-2 lever. I stud all my transmission cases. And on the side here, if I can move this, I have an adapter to run a regular Chrysler neutral switch. I put the fittings in there for the cooling line. And let's show you some parts that are here. This is his valve body. the valve body for frostbite. And it's a reverse manual valve body. We're going to set this about 185 to 190 psi. It shifts reverse pattern, which you go first, second, third, fourth gear. And the fourth gear that it shifts into overdrive doesn't use no electronics. So this 46RE becomes standalone. No kickdown linkage is needed, and no computer is needed, no transmission computer, because the valve body is all standalone. Here we have the trans brake solenoid, the lockup solenoids, and let's see if we can turn this around. I'll let you look at the other side. It's a real nice piece. I take a lot of pride in that valve body. It's my design. And this is valve body number 310. This stupid camera focus is worth a crap. I'll take my word for it. It's 310. We're going to use a solid front band and red lining. These bands, this band here, is what Chrysler used on 727s from 1962 to 1970. And then in 71, they went to flex bands, and they used that up all the way till 2006 when they quit making the 4-speed. The low reverse drum with the low reverse red line band. As you see the pump, there's the stator support, the sun shell, the input shaft and hub, the intermediate shaft. Talk a little bit about the gear ratios. This is what is called in the industry a low gear set. So this first gear ratio, and you can tell by it's got the smaller pinions, and the sun gear has a larger diameter welded onto it. So all low gear sets, you're going to have the sun gear on the front be large and the sun gear on the back be standard size or smaller. If this was a 245 ratio, the sun gear would have the same size gear and tooth count on both sides. So this is what normally comes in a 46RE, which is the ratio is 245 to 1 and 145 to 1 and then 1 to 1. So first, second, third. This ratio here that we're putting in Frostbite's trans is a 277 to 1. And the reason why I'm doing that is because there's two reasons why. One, the 545 has a pretty steep first gear. It's 3.00 to 1. So when you go from a 3.00 to a 245, that's a big drop in gear ratios. So I wanted to go with a steeper ratio just so there wasn't that big gap of what he used to have with the 545 compared to what the 46RE. The second reason why I want to use this gear set, and here's the front annulus of that gear set, the low gear set, is because the truck is heavy. The truck weighs close to 4,000 pounds, so this gear ratio, having a lower first gear, is really going to help get this out of the hole. And I don't know why this thing ain't focusing worth the crap. I got to learn my camera. This pinion is a 4-pinion steel carrier. It's made by one of my competitors. It has needle bearings on the top of the thrust side and not washers. So it'll take the torque load of the Hemi, a supercharged Hemi, and it'll also take the torque load because it's a heavy vehicle. So that's why I opted to go to a 245. It's more money. It's probably double than just putting a steel Planetary in there. But I think for this truck, it's going to need it. Now, Mr. Haney, which is my truck, runs this same ratio. And in my Coronet, I ran this same ratio. And I really like how it acts to the trans brake. This truck should do some okay wheelies. So not real big, but it should yank both front tires off the ground. So that's about the gear ratio. I want to talk about the rear Planetary too. I have two of them here And the rear gear, the rear Planetary has been the same from 1962 all the way up to 2006. Man, that is a long run. They come in 3 or 4 pinions, and the 46 always usually comes with 4 pinions. This is the standard Planetary for the rear. It's made up from aluminum, has 4 pins, and uses a thrust washer. Oh, it's on there pretty good. Uses this thrust washer. I made this for frostbite. This one I machined for Torton bearings. So instead of having a washer on each side, it's going to have bearings on each side. That's going to make it have less friction and free up horsepower. So since the low gear set in the front has bearings, and there's a preload end play setting for a bearing transmission compared to a washer transmission, I don't like mixing the two. I've done it before in the past where you have bearings in the front and washers in the back, but then you got to find a happy medium between the end play or the gear train end play, because like a washer transmission, you can go 15 to 25, 30 thousandths end play, where a bearing transmission, you can go from 5 to 10 thousandths. So this is going to get this Planetary. We do offer these to the customer if they want to upgrade. It's rollerized, and it's got the needle bearings in there instead of the washers. So that's an upgrade that I didn't tell Dylan about. So there you go, Dylan. Now you know. Only the best for frostbite. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the billet steel drum that we're putting in here. This is the front billet steel drum, and this particular one is in large piston size. This is the standard size piston of the stock drum, and you can get a billet drum that uses the standard size piston, but again, because of the weight of the vehicle, it's heavier. And the more area that you have that the fluid pushes on, the more pounds per squared inch. By increasing the squared inches, you get more clamping force with the same hydraulic pressure. So as you can see, you can see how much bigger the billet piston is compared to the stock piston. So it's going to make the trans brake hold better. Not that my brake needs any help, because it works so good by itself. However, it will hold the brake. The brake will work better, and it'll have a better third gear and hold better while it's going through the overdrive ratio. This is going to take my 15 springs. Then I have a billet spring retainer that's going to go on top of the springs when you put it in the drum. The only thing I got left to talk about on this before I start assembling the transmission is, again, we're using Rebestis GPZ clutches. I've used these in diesels. I've used these in drag racing applications, off-road applications, and it's the best clutch out there. I think they're way better than the Reds, and I used Reds since I was a kid. So I really like the GPZ clutches. So this is basically just what we have left to do. The overdrive unit's done. The case is done. The valve body is done. All I have to do is build the pump, build the 2 drums, assemble the Planetary system, and then start doing the final assembly on the transmission.